Not alone in the sense of having no one around. Alone in the cosmic sense. Alone in the sense that there is no divine witness, no greater plan, no prefabricated meaning waiting for you. Just you, a conscious speck of dust floating in a universe that owes you absolutely nothing. This is the vertigo that modernity has given us. And the question no one wants to ask is, can you handle it? Because you see, for millennia we lived under the protection of a comforting certainty. Someone was watching. Someone knew. Someone cared. God wasn't just a religious figure. He was the guarantee that your pain had purpose, that your choices mattered for something beyond the void. It was the constant gaze that turned your life into a narrative with a beginning, middle, and end. But then something broke. Not all at once, not with a bang. It was a slow, almost imperceptible crumbling. And when you realized it, you were standing in a world where no one is watching, where you can do anything, be anything, and the universe won't bat an eye. Is it freedom? Yes. Is it terrifying? Also yes. Because freedom without witnesses is a very specific kind of loneliness. The kind that whispers in the silence of the early morning that maybe none of this matters. And then comes the question that no one prepared you to answer. If God doesn't exist to give meaning to your life, do you have enough strength to create that meaning yourself? Or will you spend the rest of your days trying to fill the void with substitutes that will never be enough? This is not just a distant philosophical question, debated by dead thinkers in dusty libraries. It is the silent crisis you carry with you every day. That feeling that you're doing everything right, working, relating, achieving, but that deep down something fundamental is missing. As if you were putting together a giant puzzle without ever having seen the picture on the box. And the more pieces you fit together, the more you realize that maybe there is no picture at all. Maybe there never was. And now you're here, with your hands full of fragments, trying to decide whether to keep trying to make sense of the chaos or to finally admit, maybe life doesn't come with an instruction manual. Maybe you are and always have been completely on your own. And the scariest thing is that this loneliness is no exception. It's the modern human condition. We're all navigating this void, pretending we know the way, when in fact we're just as lost as you are. The feeling started slowly, as these things always do. You woke up one day and realized that the answers you were given as a child about right and wrong, about why things happen, about what happens when it all ends, just didn't work anymore. It's not that you stopped believing on purpose. It's that something inside you began to suspect. And the more you looked around, the more you realized no one really knows. Everyone is improvising, pretending there's a manual, but deep down navigating in the dark, just like you. And that's when the vertigo began. Kierkegaard, a Danish philosopher obsessed with existential angst, called this the vertigo of freedom. It's not fear of anything specific. It's the terror of realizing that you can do anything, and that nothing, absolutely nothing, is stopping you. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff. It's not just the fear of falling. It's the fear that you could at any moment choose to jump. That's the anguish of total freedom. You're too free to make mistakes, too free to get lost, too free to ruin everything. And there's no safety net. There's no God watching from above, ready to catch you if you slip. It's just you and your choices, and the weight of that is almost unbearable. Modernity promised that killing God would be liberating, that we could finally live without the shackles of ancient dogmas, without the guilt imposed by arbitrary moral rules. And in part it was, but no one told you about the other side of the coin, that without those shackles, you would also lose your anchor. Because God, even if he was a construct, functioned as a fixed point. He defined what was good, what was bad, what was worthwhile. And even if you disagreed, even if you rebelled, there was something to rebel against. There was a reference point, a north. Now you're free to set your own rules. But here comes the problem. How do you define what is right when there is no longer an absolute? How do you know you are going in the right direction when there is no longer a direction? The short answer is, you don't know. And that should be empowering, right? You are the architect of your own existence. You draw the blueprint, choose the materials, decide the height and style. But in practice, what you feel is something else. You feel like you're adrift, that every decision is a shot in the dark, that you could be getting everything wrong and never know it, because there is no longer a cosmic judge to say, no, wait, you're going down the wrong path. It's like trying to put together a puzzle without the picture on the box. You have all the pieces but no idea how they fit together. And the more you try, the more you realize that maybe there is no picture. Maybe the pieces were never meant to fit together. Maybe you're trying to find order where there is only chaos. And this is where modern pain sets in. Because the previous generation had God, or at least the illusion of him. They had a structure, a prefabricated purpose that, even if it was suffocating, gave them direction. You were born, you followed the rules, you got married, you had children, you worked, you died. And it all had meaning because it was aligned with the greater divine plan. But you inherited freedom without the instruction manual. You were told to be whoever you want to be, but they forgot to teach you how to figure out who you want to be. They told you to create your own meaning, but no one warned you that creating meaning from scratch is one of the most exhausting tasks of human existence. It's like handing you a blank canvas and expecting a masterpiece, but never teaching you how to hold a paintbrush. And so you do what everyone else does. You try to fill the void with a career, with relationships, with achievements, with likes, views, external validation. You turn productivity into a religion, consumption into a ritual, self-optimization into salvation. Because if you can no longer believe in God, you need to believe in something. You need to feel that you are moving towards something, even if you don't know what it is. You wake up before sunrise, work until you can no longer feel your body, pursue goals that other people have defined as important. And for a moment, when you achieve something, a promotion, a compliment, a round number of followers, you feel that flash, that feeling of maybe this is it. Maybe this achievement is the missing piece. Maybe now you finally feel complete. But then the emptiness returns. It always returns. Because deep down you know you're playing a game whose rules don't make sense. You're running on an endless treadmill, chasing a finish line that moves every time you get closer. And the cruelest part is that you can't stop, because stopping means facing the emptiness head on. It means admitting that maybe all these achievements mean nothing, that you are killing yourself for goals you didn't choose, living a life you didn't design, following a script someone wrote without asking you if that's what you wanted. But deep down you know that none of this is enough, that no matter how much you achieve, no matter how much you accumulate, there is still that emptiness, that feeling that something fundamental is missing. And the more you try to ignore it, the louder the whisper becomes. What if none of this matters? What if you're just distracting yourself until you die? That's why you have existential crises at 3 a.m. That's why, even when surrounded by people, you feel alone. Because deep down, you are. Cosmically, absolutely, inevitably alone. And no amount of likes, no relationship, no professional achievement will change that. And modernity didn't prepare you for that. It sold you autonomy, but delivered disorientation. It promised you freedom, but forgot to warn you that freedom without a greater purpose is just another word for abandonment. You were told you could be anything, but you weren't taught how to deal with the weight of having to choose everything. Because choosing everything also means taking responsibility for everything. Every mistake, every failure, every moment of doubt, it all falls on you. There is no longer the comforting excuse of it was God's will or it was written in the stars. It's just you. And perhaps that's the scariest truth of all, that you are totally free and totally responsible, and that no one, neither on earth nor in heaven, will hold your hand when you make a mistake. You are alone in your freedom, and that is both the greatest gift and the greatest curse that modernity could give you. Nietzsche saw this coming. At the end of the 19th century, he wrote one of the most misunderstood phrases in philosophy: God is dead. Most people read this as a celebration, as if Nietzsche were raising a flag of triumphant atheism, shouting, "We're finally free of this illusion." But he wasn't celebrating. He was warning us. Because Nietzsche knew that killing God wasn't just destroying a religious belief. It was dismantling the moral and existential foundation of all Western civilization. And he was terrified of what would come next. God is dead and we have killed him, he wrote. But then he asked, how shall we comfort ourselves, we murderers among murderers? What was most sacred and most powerful in the world until now has bled under our knives. Doesn't exactly sound like victory, does it? Because Nietzsche understood something that most people prefer to ignore. When you kill God, you're not just getting rid of a heavenly tyrant. You are destroying the only value system humanity has known for millennia. You are removing the foundation and expecting the building to remain standing. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. The building collapses. Slowly, quietly, but it collapses. And we are living amid the rubble, trying to pretend that everything is fine. The problem wasn't God himself. The problem was the void he would leave behind. Because God, for centuries, served as the definitive answer to all the difficult questions. Why are we here? God. What happens when we die? God. Why does suffering exist? God has a plan. Why should I be good? Because God is watching. These answers may have been unsatisfactory, they may have been frustrating, but they were answers. And answers, even bad ones, are better than silence. When you remove God, what's left? Silence. A deafening silence that forces you to face a truth that no one wants to admit. Maybe there is no answer. Maybe the universe doesn't make sense. Maybe you're here by accident, and when you die, it will be as if you never existed. And that, let's face it, is not comforting. So what did modernity do? It tried to replace God. And oh, how it tried. It replaced religion with ideology, with progress, with science, with revolution. Nazism, communism, unbridled capitalism, they all tried to become the new absolute, the new source of meaning. They all promised the same thing God promised, a greater purpose, a clear direction, a guarantee that your life mattered. And they all failed spectacularly, because none of them could fill the void God left behind. Because God wasn't just a political or scientific idea, He was an existential answer. He was the guarantee that your life, however insignificant it might seem, had eternal value. It was the promise that someone was paying attention, that your choices had cosmic weight, that in the end, everything would make sense. Think about it. Communism promised paradise on earth, a perfect society where everyone would be equal and happy. The result? Millions dead, forced labor camps, and in the end, nothing but ashes. Capitalism promised that free markets would bring prosperity and fulfillment to all. The result? A society where you are worth what you produce, where your identity is defined by what you consume, and where happiness is always one purchase or one promotion away. Science promised to unravel all the mysteries of the universe and free us from superstition. And yes, it has explained a lot, but explaining how something works is not the same as saying why it matters. Science can tell you that you are a temporary arrangement of atoms, but it cannot tell you why you should care about continuing to be that arrangement. It can explain the mechanisms of consciousness, but it cannot tell you why your consciousness is worth anything. Today, you live with the wreckage of that attempt. You no longer have totalitarian ideologies promising collective salvation, but you have consumerism promising that happiness is just a purchase away. You no longer have the church dictating every aspect of your life, but you have the culture of performance saying that your value depends on your productivity. You no longer have God judging your sins, but you have social media judging every post, every opinion, every breath. You traded one invisible God for 1,000 visible gods, and none of them save you. None of them give you what you really seek, the feeling that your existence matters for something beyond yourself. The feeling that you are not just a cosmic accident destined to disappear without a trace. And the most ironic part? You know this. You know that buying more things won't fill the void, that working longer hours won't give you purpose, that accumulating followers won't cure loneliness. But you keep trying because the alternative is worse. The alternative is to look into the abyss and admit, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. And maybe there's no one to tell me. The alternative is to wake up every morning without a clear reason to get out of bed, without a clear direction to follow, without a guarantee that anything you do will matter in 100 years or 10, or even tomorrow. Nietzsche called this nihilism, the belief that nothing has value, that nothing matters. And he warned, if we don't find a way to create new values, to rebuild meaning from scratch, nihilism will destroy us. It will reduce us to existential zombies, wandering through life without direction, without purpose, just waiting for something, anything, to tell us we're doing it right. And look around. Look at the people on the streets, on public transportation, on screens. See that empty stare, that exhaustion that doesn't go away even after a vacation. That feeling of living on autopilot, just going through the motions without knowing why anymore. That's nihilism in action. It's not an abstract philosophical theory. It's the silent epidemic of modernity. And the worst part is that we know it. We feel it, but we don't know what to do about it. So we carry on. We shop, we work, we post, we pretend that everything is fine. We pretend that the small victories, the like, the compliment from the boss, the slightly fuller bank account are enough. But in the silence of the night, when you are alone with your thoughts, the truth returns. And it is always the same. You killed God, but you found nothing to put in his place. And now you are here, too free and too lost, trying to figure out how to live in a world without witnesses, without judgment, without eternal reward. A world where everything you do disappears with you. A world where your entire life, all your struggles, achievements, loves and pains is just a cosmic blink of an eye that no one will remember. So here you are, carrying this freedom that no one asked for, because that's what happens when God dies. You inherit not only his absence, but total responsibility for everything. Every choice, every direction, every mistake, it's all yours. And the most disturbing thing is that this freedom doesn't come with relief. It comes with weight. A silent weight that you carry on your back every day without ever being able to fully name what it is. Camus, a French philosopher who lived amid the ruins of World War II, understood this in a visceral way. He wrote about the absurd, the idea that we live in a universe that doesn't respond, that doesn't care, that offers no meaning. And we, humans obsessed with meaning, are stuck in this paradox. We seek answers in a place that will never give us any. It's like shouting into a canyon and never hearing the echo. You keep shouting because you need to, because you can't stop. But the silence persists, and eventually you realize The universe isn't hiding the answer. It simply doesn't have one to give you. Camus illustrated this with the myth of Sisyphus, the man condemned by the gods to push a huge rock up a mountain, only to see it roll back down as soon as he reached the top. And then he would have to start all over again, forever. It's a brutal image of futility. And that's exactly what modern life looks like when you remove God from the equation. You wake up, you work, you struggle, you achieve something, and then what? The boulder rolls back down. You have to start over. Tomorrow will be the same. And the day after that, and next year. Until you die and the boulder finally stops. Not because you won, but because you ceased to exist. But here's the twist Camus offers, and it's a strange, almost masochistic twist. He says we should imagine Sisyphus happy, pushing that damn rock forever, without purpose, without reward, without end, and yet happy. Because happiness, according to Camus, is not in reaching the top. It is in accepting that there is no top. It is in recognizing the absurd, facing it head on, and still deciding to continue. Not because it makes sense, but precisely because it doesn't. It's a form of existential rebellion. The universe says that nothing matters, and you respond, I'm going to matter anyway. But let's be honest, that sounds nice in theory. In practice, it's exhausting, because you're not Sisyphus. You're you, and you wake up tired. You look at your to-do list, at the expectations weighing on you, at the goals that never stop multiplying, and you think, what's the point? And that question, simple, direct, inevitable, is the one that hurts the most, because you don't have an answer. You only have the rock, and the mountain, and the certainty that tomorrow will be the same as today. Freedom then reveals its cruelest face, because freedom isn't just being able to choose what you want. It's having to choose always without rest, without any guarantee that you're choosing right. Kierkegaard called this anguish, that vertigo of standing on the edge of a precipice. Camus called it absurdity, the awareness that you're trapped in a meaningless cycle. But both were talking about the same pain, the unbearable weight of being alive without a manual, without a witness, without a reward waiting at the end. And what makes it even more difficult is that you can't just give up, because giving up would mean admitting that nihilism has won, that nothing matters, so why care about anything? But something in you resists. Something in you still believes that there must be a way to live that is not just about surviving, a way to carry the stone that does not destroy you in the process. And that's where it gets complicated. Because if it's not God who gives meaning, and it's not the universe, then all that's left is you. You have to create meaning. You have to invent the reason why it's worth waking up tomorrow. And that, my friend, is one of the loneliest and scariest tasks there is. Because creating meaning from scratch is not like following a recipe. There are no right ingredients, no step-by-step instructions. You're improvising. And worst of all, you'll never be sure you're doing it right. There is no God to tell you, yes, you're on the right track. There is no divine sign, no confirmation. It's just you, your choices, and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, you're building something worthwhile. But what if you're not? What if you spend your whole life building something that in the end means nothing? That's the anguish of freedom. It's not the fear of failure. It's the fear that even success is empty. And then you find yourself in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling thinking, can I handle this? Can I carry this weight with no one to share it? Can I create my own meaning knowing that it may be an illusion? Can I live knowing that when I die, everything I've built dies with me? And the honest answer, the one you don't want to admit, is maybe not. Maybe you can't handle it. Maybe no one can. Not really. Maybe we're all just pretending we can handle it, holding up the facade until we collapse in private. But Camus would say that this doubt, this fear, is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're awake. It's a sign that you're not numb by distractions, not sleeping through the routine. You're feeling the real weight of existence. And that, as painful as it may be, is also the starting point. Because only when you feel the weight can you decide what to do with it. You can be crushed, or you can learn to dance with the rock. Not because it has become lighter, but because you have become stronger. Not because the absurdity has disappeared, but because you have decided to continue anyway. And perhaps that is the only form of freedom that really matters. Not the freedom to choose without consequences, but the freedom to continue choosing, even knowing that there are no guarantees, even knowing that you may be wrong, even knowing that all of this may be in vain. You continue because you have decided that your life, however absurd it may be, is still worth living. And that in the end is the only possible victory in a universe that offers no victories. But something strange happens. Even those who swear they have killed God, who declare themselves free of any belief in the divine, continue to act as if he was still there. Not in an obvious way, not with traditional prayers or rituals, but in subtle, almost unconscious ways. Have you ever noticed this? How even the most convinced atheist has his superstitions. knocks on wood, avoids certain numbers, makes silent promises to the universe when he is desperate. If this works, I swear I'll... And the sentence hangs in the air, addressed to no one and everyone at the same time. Carl Jung, a Swiss psychologist fascinated by the mysteries of the human mind, had an explanation for this. For him, God was not necessarily a real external entity. He was an archetype, a deep and universal structure of the human psyche, something that is engraved in us not by choice but by design, as if the idea of something greater, of a transcendent force, were part of our emotional code. And when you consciously try to erase God, he does not disappear. He just transforms, he migrates. He hides in new places, wears new masks, but remains there, pulsing deep within your need for meaning. Jung said that denying God does not free you from the need for God. You can kill religion, you can reject the church, you can ridicule the sacred scriptures, but you cannot kill the existential hunger that religion tried to feed. Because that hunger is not cultural, it is human. It is the need to belong to something greater than yourself, to feel that your life connects to a broader story, to believe that there is an order, even if invisible, even if incomprehensible, that gives coherence to chaos. And when you remove God from the altar, you inevitably put something else in its place. Look around. Look at what people worship today, not with words, but with actions, with time, with devotion, with sacrifice. For some, it's their career, the relentless God that demands constant offerings of hours, health, relationships. For others, it's the body, the modern temple that must be sculpted, optimized, photographed, worshipped. For still others, it's political ideology, the new religion that offers collective salvation, clear enemies, and the moral certainty of being on the right side of history. And for many, it is simply validation, that invisible God of social media that demands posts, likes, comments, constant proof that you exist and matter. You have exchanged a transcendent God for immanent gods. And the problem is that these new gods are worse, because God, at least in theory, was perfect. He did not abandon you. He did not change his mind. He didn't judge you based on arbitrary metrics of productivity or appearance. But your new gods, they are cruel. They are never satisfied. You never work hard enough. You are never beautiful enough. You never have enough followers. You are never enough, period. And worst of all, these gods offer no redemption. There is no forgiveness. There is no eternal rest. Only the endless demand for more, always more. And maybe that's why, despite all your modern freedom, you don't feel free. You feel trapped. Trapped in a race that has no finish line. Trapped in a never-ending quest for validation. Trapped in a life that should be yours but seems to belong to everyone else. To algorithms, to expectations, to standards you didn't even choose but which follow you like shadows. You have exchanged the oppression of a distant God for the oppression of 1,000 nearby gods. And none of them offer you what you really need: peace. Jung believed that the solution was not to kill God, but to understand him differently. Not as an external entity that judges you, but as an internal compass, a symbol of that part of you that seeks integrity, connection, transcendence. He called this the self, the deepest self, the one that goes beyond the ego, beyond social masks. And perhaps what you are really looking for is not God out there, but this truer version of yourself, that part that knows even without words what really matters, that quiet voice that whispers when you stop distracting yourself. This is not it. This is not the way. You're wasting your time with things that are not you. But listening to that voice takes courage, because it will ask you to abandon the false gods. It will ask you to stop seeking external validation. It will ask you to face the void and build something real in the middle of it. And that's scary. It's much easier to continue worshipping visible gods even if they destroy you than to dive into the silence and find what is truly yours. Because finding what is truly yours also means taking responsibility for it. It means stopping blaming others, the system, circumstances. It means looking in the mirror and saying, this is my life, and if it's not working, I'm the one who needs to change it. And maybe that's what scares us the most. Not the absence of God, but the inescapable presence of yourself. Because while God was there, you had someone to blame, someone to question, someone to rebel against. But now it's just you, your choices, your failures, your victories. Everything falls on your shoulders, and there's nowhere else to run. And if you're feeling lost right now, questioning everything you thought you knew, know that this is not weakness. It's the beginning. It's the moment when you finally stop running away and start really looking. And if you want to continue this journey, if you want to explore these questions more deeply, subscribe to the channel. Because this isn't about ready-made answers. It's about asking the right questions. It's about building something real amid the chaos. And you don't have to do it alone. Because the truth is that we are all on this same quest. We are all trying to find that inner compass amid the noise. And perhaps by sharing this journey, by recognizing that we are not alone in this struggle, we can find something that approaches true meaning. Not a meaning imposed from outside, but a meaning built from within. A meaning that is genuinely ours. The uncomfortable truth is that God has always been a mirror that reflected not what he was, but what we needed him to be. When we were afraid, he was protective. When we sought justice, he was judge. When we wanted forgiveness, he was a merciful father. And when we wanted to punish our enemies, well, he conveniently hated the same people we did. God changed shape as our pains changed. He was infinitely adaptable, perfectly customizable, and perhaps it has always been this way. Not a creator observing his creation, but a creation observing itself through a divine mirror. Think about how every civilization, every culture, every era has molded God in its own image. The Greeks had gods who were basically humans with superpowers, jealous, vengeful, lustful. The gods perfectly reflected Greek society. Dramatic, competitive, obsessed with honor and glory. The God of the Old Testament was a warrior because the people who worshipped him were constantly at war, fighting for survival in a hostile world. The Jesus of the New Testament preached love and forgiveness because society was tired of violence and seeking a new way of life. And the modern God, the one people still invoke, he is convenient. He supports your political opinions. He validates your choices. He is conveniently exactly what you need him to be. This is not cynicism. It is observation. Because if God were truly an objective, independent, transcendent entity, he would not change so much. He would not be so perfectly aligned with the values of each era. But he does change. He always has. And the reason is simple. Because God was never about him. It was always about us. About our needs, our fears, our hopes. God is what we put on the blank canvas of the unknown. And depending on how we feel, the image changes. And that creates a fascinating paradox. If God is a reflection of ourselves, then when we look at him, what are we really seeing? Are we seeing our best aspirations? Kindness, justice, unconditional love? Or are we seeing our worst impulses? Judgment, exclusion, need for control? The answer, of course, is both. Because we are both. And God, as a perfect mirror, reflects everything. He is the noblest part of us and also the darkest. And perhaps that is why religion has been used both to heal and to kill, both to liberate and to oppress. Because it has always reflected humanity in its entirety, with all its glory and all its brutality. But here's the part that really hurts. If God is a mirror, what happens when the mirror breaks? What happens when you look where he used to be and see nothing? The answer is that you are left alone with your own image. No filter, no idealization. Just you, with all your contradictions, your flaws, your fears. And that's terrifying. Because while God was there, you could project your hopes onto him. You could believe that someone somewhere had the answers. But now you look at the broken mirror and realize the only answers that exist are the ones you create. And perhaps that is the most painful and most liberating revelation at the same time. You spent your life searching for God, in churches, in books, in spiritual experiences, without realizing that what you were really looking for was inside you all along. Not in the naive sense of you are divine or you are perfect just the way you are, but in the sense that the ability to create meaning, to define what is good, to choose how to live, all of that has always been yours. God didn't give you these things. You had them from the beginning. You just needed permission to use them. And God, ironically, was the one who denied you that permission. Because while he was in charge, you didn't have to decide, you just had to obey. Now he's no longer there. And you finally have no excuse. You can no longer say it was God's will when something goes wrong. You can no longer outsource your moral choices to a manual written thousands of years ago. You can no longer wait for someone up there to fix your life. It's all you. It always has been. But now you know that. And knowing that changes everything. Because when you realize that God was a mirror, you also realize that you can choose what to reflect. You can choose the values you want to live by. You can choose the kind of person you want to be. You can choose to create beauty, meaning, connection. Not because God told you to, but because you decided it matters. And maybe, just maybe, that's a form of divinity far more real than any external God ever was. Not the divinity of a perfect being watching from above, but the imperfect, fragile, courageous divinity of a human being who decides despite everything to care, who decides despite the absurdity to build something, who decides despite the cosmic loneliness to love. And that choice, that decision to care even without guarantees, is perhaps the most courageous act there is. Because it's easy to care when there's a reward, when there's a heaven waiting, when there's a God keeping score. But caring when there is none of that, when you know that everything will end, that nothing is permanent, that the universe is not paying attention, that is pure courage. That is humanity in its rawest and most beautiful form. And maybe that's what you're looking for when you seek God. Not an external savior, but the courage to be your own savior. Not a cosmic judge, but the honesty to judge and forgive yourself. Not a heavenly father, but the maturity to be your own guide. The mirror has broken, and now you can finally stop looking outside and start looking inside, and discover that everything you needed was always there, waiting for you to have the courage to recognize it. And now we come to the question that no one wants to ask out loud, the one that sticks in your throat during sleepless nights, the one you push to the back of your mind during the day, but which comes back with full force when you're alone. The question is simple and brutal. What if you really are alone? Not in the romantic sense of finding yourself, but truly alone, cosmically irrelevant, just a biological accident on a lost planet orbiting an ordinary star in a galaxy among billions. And when you die, the universe won't blink, it won't pause, it won't even notice. Carl Sagan, an astronomer who dedicated his life to translating the cosmos for us mortals, captured this truth in a photo. Voyager 1, out there at the edge of the solar system, turned its camera back and photographed Earth. The result? A pale blue dot, an insignificant pixel floating in the void. And Sagan, with that mixture of poetry and scientific devastation, said, "Everything that has ever happened, all the wars, all the loves, all the empires, all the achievements, happened on that speck of dust suspended in a sunbeam. All the kings and beggars, all the heroes and villains, all the inventors of religious systems, they all lived there, on that dot." It's humiliating, isn't it? To realize that all of human history, everything you think is important, everything you strive to achieve, happened in a microscopic fragment of space, during a microscopic fragment of time, and that when that fragment is over, and it will be over, none of it will have mattered to the universe. Because the universe doesn't care. It wasn't made to care. It just is. Galaxies are born and die. Stars explode. Black holes devour everything around them. And at no point, in no corner of this incomprehensible vastness, is there anything caring about you. And that is the truth you try to avoid at all costs. Because as long as you can pretend that your life has cosmic meaning, as long as you can believe that someone is watching, that your actions reverberate in the fabric of the universe, you can keep going. But when you really face the possibility that there is no witness, that there is no stage, that you are talking to yourself in an empty theater, that's when it all falls apart. Because everything that motivates you, everything that gets you out of bed, is based on the idea that your life matters. And the universe has just told you it doesn't matter. It never mattered. It never will. That's why people create narratives. That's why we invent God, construct ideologies, cling to causes. Because the alternative is unbearable. The alternative is to look at the immensity of the cosmos and admit we are insignificant, temporary, forgettable. And when the last person who remembers you dies, it will be as if you never existed. All your efforts, all your struggles, all your pain, erased, like footprints in the sand that the tide washes away. And maybe you're thinking us, that's too depressing. Why did I need to know that? But here's the twist. You already knew. Deep down you always knew. You just built layers and layers of distraction so you wouldn't have to face it. You lost yourself in work, relationships, goals, achievements, anything to avoid sitting in silence and hearing the truth. And the truth is that you're here for an absurdly short time, and then you'll be gone, and the universe will go on indifferent as if you never existed. But what if that truth, as frightening as it is also liberating? Because if nothing matters cosmically, then nothing cosmically binds you. You don't have to live up to eternal expectations. You don't have to justify your existence to a divine judge. You don't have to prove your worth to a universe that never asked for proof. You are free, radically, terrifyingly free. And what will you do with that freedom? Will you waste it trying to impress people who are also going to die? Will you spend it accumulating things you can't take with you? Or will you finally live in a way that is true, even if temporary? Because maybe the problem was never insignificance. Maybe the problem was the way you were trying to escape it. Trying to be big enough, important enough, memorable enough to beat death. But you can't beat it. No one can. And maybe, just maybe, accepting that is the first step to truly living. Not living to leave a legacy that will be forgotten, but living because you are alive now. And now is all you have, and all you will ever have. Cosmic loneliness is not punishment. It is context. It is the backdrop against which your life happens. And yes, it is vast, indifferent, silent. But that doesn't make your life any less real. It doesn't make your feelings any less valid. It doesn't make your connections any less precious. If anything, it makes everything more precious. Because all of this, love, friendship, beauty, laughter happens despite the emptiness. It happens because you chose to create meaning in a place that offers none. And that in the end is not weakness. It is the bravest thing you can do. So here we are. You crossed the desert. You looked into the abyss. You felt the weight of freedom, the absence of witnesses, the cosmic loneliness. And you're still here, reading this, breathing, thinking. And that in itself is a victory, because most people don't make it this far. They feel the discomfort at the beginning of the journey and run back to their distractions. But you stayed, you endured. And now comes the hardest part. What are you going to do with all this? Because information without action is just entertainment. You can watch this video, feel that thrill of recognition, that feeling of finally someone understands. And then, nothing. Back to the same life, the same patterns, the same distractions. Or you can do something different. You can take that awareness and turn it into reconstruction. Not a quick reconstruction, not a magic solution, but a process. Slow, difficult, honest. Camus was right when he said that we should imagine Sisyphus happy. But he wasn't talking about an illusory happiness, the kind you force with positive affirmations or performative gratitude. He was talking about a happiness that comes from radical acceptance, from the ability to look at the absurdity of life, all the suffering, all the futility, all the emptiness, and say, I choose to continue anyway, not because it makes sense, but because you have decided that your life, however brief and insignificant it may be cosmically, still deserves to be lived fully. And what does it mean to live fully? It doesn't mean climbing Everest or winning a Nobel Prize. It doesn't mean having 1 million followers or building an empire. It means stopping living according to scripts that other people have written. It means stopping chasing validations that will never satisfy you. It means stopping killing yourself for goals you didn't even choose, just because someone told you they were important. Living fully means finding what is true for you, not for your parents, not for society, not for the algorithm, and having the courage to pursue it even if no one understands, even if no one applauds. And yes, it's scary, because without external validation, without the assurance that you're on the right path, everything seems uncertain. But here's the secret no one tells you. It's always been uncertain. You just pretended it wasn't. You followed the rules, accumulated achievements, hoping that eventually the uncertainty would disappear. But it never did, and it never will, because life is uncertain by nature. And accepting that rather than fighting it is what sets you free. Jung said that the process of individuation, of becoming who you really are, is a journey inward, not outward. It is looking at your shadows, recognizing your masks, and slowly discarding everything that is not essential. It is painful, because you will discover that much of what you thought you were is just conditioning, internalized expectations, roles you took on to please, to belong, to survive. And when you start to peel away those layers, you become vulnerable, exposed, but you also become real. And for the first time, free. And maybe real freedom isn't doing what you want without consequences. Maybe it's having the courage to live in alignment with who you are, even knowing there will be consequences, even knowing that some people won't understand, even knowing that you might make mistakes. Because making mistakes while being yourself is better than getting it right while being someone else. And at the end of your life, the only question that will matter is, did I truly live, or did I just play the role they gave me? So here's the first step. It's not grand, it's not revolutionary, but it's real. Stop, literally stop. Take a day, an hour, 10 minutes, and whatever you can, and sit in silence. No cell phone, no distractions, no music, just you and your thoughts. And ask yourself, what do I really want? Not what my parents want, not what society expects, not what will get me more likes. What do I want? And let the answer come. Even if it's scary, even if it's inconvenient, even if it's different from what you're living now. And then little by little start aligning your life with that answer. Not all at once, not with drastic changes that leave you panicked, but with small adjustments. One choice at a time, one honest conversation. A no to something that doesn't serve you, a yes to something that resonates. And as you do that, something changes. You begin to feel that you are living your life, not someone else's. And that, my friend, is the closest you will get to a definitive answer in a universe that offers none. Now I want to hear from you. If God doesn't exist to save you, what will you do with the responsibility of saving yourself? Leave your answer in the comments. I want to hear your truth, not the edited version you show to the world. If you've made it this far, you've already taken a step beyond most people. You watch the videos, you reflect on each idea. Now the question is, how far do you want to go with this? If you want to take the next step and truly apply this knowledge to your life, the White Rabbit codes are ready for you. The link is in the video description. Remember, Success is a decision. The choice is yours. Count on me and follow the white rabbit. And while you decide what to do with all this, remember, the question was never whether God exists. The question has always been whether you have the courage to exist fully, even without Him. And only you can answer that question. Not tomorrow, not when you're sure, but now. Because now is all you have, and it always has been.